Alright, tell me, does this sound familiar? You're browsing the internet, checking out some of your favorite YouTubers, and boom, you find an animal that you really like. So what do? You open up a new tab and you start researching. What do these animals need? What size of enclosure do they need? Do they need UVB? What kind of humidity do they like? What will they eat? And you keep going until you know exactly what it takes to care for one of these animals. And this is where the fun begins. Because now you can start translating all the knowledge you've gathered. You can start building a terrarium, pick out the perfect pieces of hardscape, get a nice big collection of plants in there. Maybe even collect some of your own moss. You spend days figuring out where that one branch should go until eventually you get everything just right. You've done it, it looks amazing. So you introduce the animal, you sit down in front of the tank and start enjoying your creation. And the next day, you sit down in front of the tank. And you keep doing this every single day. Until one day you sit down, look at your tank and think, I could do better. When you're building a terrarium or you're upgrading a tank, you should always consider the needs of the animal. First you make it practical and then you make it pretty. Well, if you take a look at my turtle's Paludarium, you can see right away that it looks very naturalistic. And I'm really happy with the design. For me, a natural looking tank will always be the best option. However, I feel like there's something missing in there. I think there are not enough plants. And I know there are quite a few in there already. I just think even more will be better. So underneath all of my tanks I have these bins. And I use these for propagating plants, quarantining plants, that sort of stuff. I definitely want to use this fern. Maybe I also want to use this sword fern, this Sachinella. This one will fit in very nicely. And I will also be adding this Amazon frogbit, which I think will look really well between the duckweed and the salvinia that's in there right now. Alright, so I now know what plants I want to add, but before we can do that, I want to take one more look at the tank, because I need to address the elephant in the room here. The moss covering the walls isn't really doing too great. It's rotting out. In the original build I glued fabric all over the walls with the idea that it could wick water all the way up to the top. But this simply doesn't work. It's able to wick water up 10 or 15 centimeters above the waterline, but after that it's just completely dry. Does this mean the fabric is useless? No it doesn't. It's still a really great medium for the moss to grow in. We just need to figure out a way to keep it moist. I try to mist it down with the spray bottle as often as I can, but it just doesn't really fit in the tank. So I plan on upgrading to a spray bottle like this or a misting system or something like it, so we can help this moss start to thrive again. As soon as the moss is covering the entire wall, I think we can ease out on the misting and the moss will be able to wick the water up itself. But I'm not really sure about this. Only time will tell. Something else that's been bugging me about this tank are these two pieces of wood. I don't think they look good in there at all and I would really like to take both of them out. But I can't really do that because of the needs of the turtle. You see, koa is a North American spotted turtle and the babies of this species are really terrible swimmers. That's why the water level is so low. On top of that, they need some hardscape elements in there that they can climb up against when they need to rest. If you fail to do this, you run the risk of them drowning, which you obviously don't want. However, I rarely see him use this piece back there at all. Most of the time he holds on to either the front corners of the enclosure, sits on top of this branch, or climbs up halfway up this ramp. So I'd say it's safe to remove this piece. Besides, it will give us some space to put a planter. And about that planter, let's build it. And there it is, the planter box. So this whole thing should blend really well in the terrarium. But there's a problem. I did a test fit and I just can't get it in there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this back out of here, cut along these sides and just make it a little bit smaller. And hopefully that will work. Alright, here we are. I cut it in half, glued the back panel back on there, made a little hole in the top here, and yeah, it should fit now. So now I'm gonna do my weekly maintenance on this tank, and while the water level is all the way down, I'm gonna install this planter box and this smaller planter box I made off camera. But before we install them in there, I'm gonna glue a few pieces of moss on top of there. So over time these will be covered in moss, and you won't be able to tell I added them later. So let's go. Alright, the water is all the way down here now, and I want to keep this part really short because I want to get the water back up as fast as possible for these fish. Fill them up with plants. So this is the one planter. I've put the fern on top and I put some Christmas moss all over the fabric. And the other one I've got right here. I put some Christmas moss on here as well. I put some other moss in the top, and I put this little plant over top, which will start to vine all over the background, and I think that will look really cool. But now we're just gonna get this in here so I can fill the tank up with water. Alright, there we are. It's finished. It looks pretty cool, I think. What do you think about this upgrade of the Paludarium? Please let me know in the comments down below. And that's about it for this week's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, I think you will like this video too. I'll see you there.